School is back, and Dick's Sporting Goods has what you need to win your year. We've got everything from cleats to Sambas, dunks, and more. Plus, the hottest looks from Nike, Jordan, and Adidas. Find your first day fits in-store or online at Dicks.com.
When it comes to towing, seeing is believing. That's why Chevy Truck's advanced camera technology offers up to 8 available cameras for 14 unique views, so you can focus on the view that really matters. Chevrolet, together let's drive. Learn more about Chevy Trucks at Chevy.com. Safety or driver assistance features are no substitute for the driver's responsibility to operate the vehicle in a safe manner. Read the vehicle owner's manual for important feature limitations and information.
We kind of sat around and said, everybody's running the same stuff. We're all running the same plays. We're all practicing the same way. So what can make us different? So we sat down as a staff and said, let's put together some things that just, when you talk to defensive coaches and defensive coordinators, what gives them headaches? What do they hate to defend?
Today's episode is presented by Vertical Raise. Elevate your program's fundraising to new heights. Use Vertical Raise's online fundraising system and raise more money in less time. Our guest today on Coach and Coordinator Podcast, The Season, is Brad Glenn, the offensive coordinator and receivers coach for the University of Cincinnati. He is entering his second season at UC and his 30th year coaching overall. He's had an instant impact on Cincinnati's offense in 2023, helping guide the Bearcats to 217 yards per game on the ground, the 5th best in the nation. Cincinnati also tallied 426.1 yards of total offense, good for 33rd in the country in 2023. We're going to talk about 8 things that stress the defense today. And here in the early season, if you haven't put these into your playbook, they're easy to implement, probably one at a time, but Coach shares a lot of great ideas for how to utilize these 8 tools to equalize the defense. Be sure to stay tuned for Winning Edge takeaways following the interview.
At BlueNile.com, you can find endless ways to make your moments sparkle. From classic and timeless jewelry gifts to creating the custom engagement ring of her dreams, all at prices you won't find at a traditional jeweler. And right now, you can save up to 40% on fine jewelry and 25% on engagement ring settings during the Blue Nile Anniversary Sale, going on now. Go to BlueNile.com to shop the Blue Nile Anniversary Sale and save up to 40%. That's BlueNile.com.
On today's episode of The Season, we're going to talk about 8 equalizers to create an advantage for your offense. And joining me to discuss those things is Brad Glenn, the offensive coordinator and wide receivers coach at the University of Cincinnati. Coach, great to have you here on the podcast.
Hey, I appreciate you guys allowing me to be on here. Like I said, I'm a frequent listener to the podcast. I always get great ideas, or at least ideas confirmed on what I'm already thinking from you guys. So excited to do this.
Yeah, definitely, Coach. And I think this is a great topic because we, in the early season here, are really trying to figure out that identity. What are the things that can set us apart? What can we do to create an advantage with our players? I think all of us always feel, in most cases, that maybe we don't always have the superior players, but we have to find a way. And as you pointed out before we got going, when you think about this game, there's a lot of parity. There's a lot of things that we do the same way. And I know that's something you looked at, all these factors that we have that are the same, that put us on the same level as everybody else. And I know you took some time and identified those. So what are those things you see as, hey, this is what everybody deals with?
Well, I was saying we were at Western Carolina, I think around 2012, 13, somewhere in there. And we kind of sat around and said, everybody's running the same stuff. We're all running the same plays. We're all practicing the same way. We're all installing the same way. We're all doing the same thing. So what can make us different? And, obviously we said elite players was the one thing that could make us different, but not everybody get the 5 stars. So we kind of sat down as a staff and said, all right, man, let's put together some things that just, when you talk to defensive coaches and defensive coordinators, what gives them headaches? What do they hate to defend? So we just started listing a couple things, and we came up with 8 And I'm going to try to go through those things here with you guys. And this is in no certain order that we put value on them. It's just 8 things that we want to make sure we're doing in our offense. The first one that I want to talk about is just tempo. Offensively, we get to decide when we snap the ball. So let's make sure we're running some tempo plays in our offense. And now that's not necessarily just going warp speed all the time, which we want to do that too. We kind of relate it to you're playing baseball and you got a pitcher throwing 99 miles an hour and that's all he throws. Eventually somebody's going to catch up to him. So we want to be able to have multiple tempos. That may be warp speed. That may be look tempo. That may be freeze tempo. That may be a fire alarm or a sugar huddle. That may be slow it down and traditionally huddle. But we want to do everything we can to make the defense and make the defensive coordinators uncomfortable. They're at their best when they can get their cleats in the ground and diagnose the play. Okay? So we want to make them as uncomfortable as possible, and being able to change up when you snap the football goes a long way for that. We've always said tempo gives them a case of the misses. It makes them misalign, it makes them misassign, and it makes them miss tackles. And if you can force teams to miss tackles, obviously that's where you create your explosives. If you create explosives and you take care of the football, I think there's a percentage out there that you win like 92% of the time. So tempo is always going to be a part of what we do. And another little thing we like to say is we want to attack the mind, the lungs, and the legs. And tempo does that. So that was number one. Number two was be willing to line up and empty and get creative with empty, not just 5 wides. Let's mix and match personnels, whether it's 1 tight end empty, 2 tight end empty, whatever. Let's get creative with it, but let's also line up in empty and be willing to run the quarterback. Empty does a bunch of different things to defenses. Normally it limits what they can do. I think it cleans up the picture for your quarterback and your play caller. I think that's important. It's hard to cover everybody down and be gap sound against empty unless you take the middle safety out of the field, which a lot of people don't like doing that. So we said defensive coordinators hate empty. Let's make sure we've got enough empty in our package. And I'll make this is a very vague statement on what I'm about to make, but it's true. You can call a game. You can really get it down to calling a game based on 4 players. And those 4 players are the 2 outside linebackers and the 2 safeties. Why do you say those 4? Well, those 4 are guys that have to do both things. They have to either commit to stopping the run or they have to play the pass. And so empty kind of puts those guys in conflict and gives the quarterback and the play caller enough time to see what those guys are doing. So that's the reason that we like empty. The third thing is to run triple. Make them play assignment football. And obviously we do all ours out of the gun. We don't go under and run triple. But over the years, we've run it out of the gun and we've run it off various plays. We probably majored in running it off inside zone the most, but we've also run it off mid zone, counter, and pin pull. And see if they can play assignment football. You don't have to look any further than the academies to see how successful they've been in running triple and giving defenses tough times. So we want to be able to do that. Let's make sure they can cover the dive, the quarterback, and the pitcher pass off the triple option. The next one we want to talk about is let's run RPOs and package plays. And what I mean by package plays is, let's say we're in a 3-by-1 set. We want to play on 3 fields. We want to have the receiver to the single side running a route. We want to have the 3 receivers to the field running some kind of quick game, some kind of route or screen. And then we want to have a run called in the box. What we feel like that's always done is kind of give us the pin last, and the quarterback can see where the disadvantage is and get us to the right spot. I've always, as a play caller over the years, I've called plays, 18, 20 years, somewhere in there. I've always thought that my most important job as a play caller was calling the game. And now, with the way offenses are, I don't know if that's the case. I've started to believe that my most important job is teaching the quarterback how to distribute the ball. And when you run package plays, he's able to do that. You try to put your mind and your knowledge into that guy. And having said that, I think this new headset technology, somebody's going to figure this thing out and be really efficient with it, and it's going to give them a huge advantage. Being able to go to the line of scrimmage with several things going on within those package plays and having enough time to give the quarterback the correct information on where to go with the ball, it's almost going to be like you as the coordinator playing quarterback. So somebody's going to figure that out and do really well with that, light scoreboards up. So I'm interested to see what happens with the new technology. But anyway, kind of got off subject there a little bit. The next thing that I would look at would be 2 tight end sets. You hear all coordinators all the time talk about how tough it is to defend 2 tight ends, and be creative with that too. 12 personnel, 22 personnel, 3 tight ends on the field. Obviously short yardage goal line. So that gives defensive coordinators trouble. The next thing I would say is to run a lot of unbalanced sets and a lot of exotic formations, but still run your simple base plays out of those sets. You don't have to create anything new. Let's just get in unbalanced and run our base stuff, because they have to align to us. We don't have to align to them. So they're always in conflict. And if we throw a couple things out there on film of kind of exotic formations, they're spending time during the week thinking, all right, what are they going to do next? Because they've got to be ready for everything. And so throwing unbalanced in a game plan has always been huge for us. The next thing is going FSL, or formation into the sideline, and doing it a lot. A lot of guys have it in their package, but they'll get 2 or 3 snaps a game going FSL. There's so many hidden advantages in putting the formation into the boundary. You can gain an advantage big time on defenses by doing that. So committing to doing that, there's been games that we've gone FSL 35 snaps because teams were uncomfortable. There's that word again, uncomfortable in defending FSL. So that's always huge. And then the last one, number 8, is just creating advantages with shifts and motions. Again, those guys get uncomfortable. They have to communicate more. They have to communicate faster. They can't get their cleat set in the ground. They can't sit there with their eyes in certain spots and diagnose exactly what's going on. We've had times, we even have certain formations in the past that we allowed our tight end to line up wherever he wanted. Like there wasn't a certain spot. He could just choose a spot as long as he could get to his designated assignment. The same thing with our slot receiver when we would run some triple that I was talking about. We would allow him to line up wherever he wanted. He just had to get the pitch into pitch phase with a quarterback. So we'd get creative and let those, and I would say mix it up. Let's don't give them any tendencies. Mix it up. So they would, I've had conversations with my defensive coordinators in the past, and, we'd be in camp, early in camp. They'd be like, are you going to give us any FSL today? And I'd be like, I don't know. Depends on where our tight end lines up. So just giving them those looks, those shifts in motions, and making them communicate fast, I think that's awesome. So there's the 8. Now what I would add to that is when it gets really good is now let's start combining those 8. For example, let's go 2 tight ends unbalanced with tempo, or let's go empty FSL and run a package play, or let's run triple with a shift and a motion. Just getting creative and throwing all those things that they hate at the defense.
Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No, don't. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
This episode is brought to you by Experian. Are you paying for subscriptions you don't use but can't find the time or energy to cancel them? Experian could cancel unwanted subscriptions for you, saving you an average of $270 per year and plenty of time. Download the Experian app. Results will vary. Not all subscriptions are eligible. Savings are not guaranteed. Paid membership with connected payment account required.
Yeah, I love it. That's a great list. And when you look at this time of the year, early season, I think you said something that's key to this whole thing, all 8 of these, and starts the whole thing, is that we're going to start off always putting our base stuff in. And when we look at this, 8 other things I'm going to do. But run your simple base plays. I wrote that down. You said it specifically, like that's what this is all about. It's not coming up with new plays. It's using these tools to run your simple base plays. And in a couple, I think, follow-up things I wanted to ask you about, starting with tempo. I think you're right. I mean, I love to see an offense go fast. I'm always intrigued by those guys who have a process down and move as fast as anybody. You look at what Tennessee has done, hearing Glenn Ellerby talk in a clinic about the procedures they have for their offensive line so they can move to the ball as efficient as possible when it snaps so they could get it snapped again. I think those things are so cool and intriguing, but I've been from kind of that camp that you're in, that we got to mix it up. We got to have change ups. And especially when you're utilizing things like you said here, some different personnel, 2 tight ends, all those kinds of things. What I found is that when you're getting guys onto the field, it's not necessarily you who's always slowing it down. It's that official who's going to go stand over the ball and in effect is going to let the defense kind of match, get their call in, see where you're aligned. And you mentioned the sugar huddle. I've always been a big proponent of, hey, if you're going to change personnel and you want to get the effect of tempo, don't go run out on the field and line up. Go get in that sugar huddle. Get your outside receivers like the old school. I mean, you remember it's the huddle days. You'd always get your receivers out first before you broke the huddle. Yeah. And then everybody else is coming out there. Now you still have that effect of tempo. But I think tempo is something that you can game plan as well. I've had examples myself where I've showed coaches that we game planned how we were going to use this sequence of tempo. And because of that, we got those misses you talked about, right? And that's a great wrinkle to start with, even if you haven't put it in, even if you've been a huddle team, kind of coming up with maybe a series of plays or those situations, thinking about if you got the right people on the field and we're into a 3rd and short, to make them play a base defense by getting up to the ball real quick and running your base play. So I think that's a part right there. There's so much you can just do with tempo, even if you haven't done it to this point in the season, because they're easy tools to add. You can start working those procedures. Ideally, you had these in camp, but if you haven't, it's still okay. I think there's some things you can put in, some simple tools, from things like having a signal to just get up and run the same play again. I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. There's a lot of times when you can just go again and get that result you want.
No doubt. And when we first started putting in the fastball tempos, the 1-word plays, it was as easy as us just sitting around the table. And I looked at our O-line coach and I said, if you got one run play to call, our best run play with the formation and motion or however you want to call it, I said, call that play. Like he called it out. It was like 8 words or whatever. And I said, we're going to call that bingo. And I went to our wide receiver coach. What's our best pass, formation and play? And I said, okay, we're going to call that trucker. And we started out with 4 plays like that. And then over time, we grew to over 40 plays, along those same lines. I want to go back to what you said, too, about simplicity. Man, that's the name of the game. I don't want any more new plays. I don't want any new routes. I don't want any new concepts. I don't want any new ideas. What I want is tell me how to make our stuff better. Tell me how to drill it better in practice. Tell me how to practice more efficiently. Tell me how to communicate it better. Tell me how to teach it easier. Tell me how to install it better. I want to give these guys better info and better ways to practice what we do. Because at the end of the day, when the game's on the line and it's 3rd and 5 and you got to have a call to go keep a drive going, you always go back to the first 3 installs. You don't call a play that you just put in last week because you saw it, somebody on TV run it. You call what you believe in and what the team believes in. And so I think keeping it simple, sometimes everybody tries to use the word simple. We don't want a simple offense. We want to create ways to make it simple for our players. That to me is the difference. It's not just, hey, we're running these 5 plays and that's it. No, let's take complex stuff and spend all our time figuring out ways to make it easier for these young kids to execute. So where I'm at right now, that's all I'm interested in. Because I heard a guy the other day say too, and this makes so much sense. Offense is like packing to go on vacation. We always bring more than we need. And that's true. So let's start practicing this thing and installing these ways to make it simple for our guys.
Definitely. I think, just hitting on a couple of these other tools, the triple concepts doesn't mean now you got to go put the veer in and the midline in. That you just look at, again, those simple base plays you already have, which a lot of those are going to be that inside run. How can you then put that pitch phase into it? And then it becomes easier because you're working on a simple read, and now you can work with that quarterback to work on that little pitch phase. And I mean, you can control that too. If you know about option, you can find ways that your quarterback doesn't necessarily have to be the guy with the ball all the time. He can influence a defender to be able to make that pitch and get it out to the running back. So some simple things there. Yes, it will take some time on task. I think if any of these, you're looking at these in season, figure out what are the simplest ones. Figure out ones like if you want to add it, maybe you need to take a couple weeks here before it makes its appearance on the call sheet, but you can start working those in the early season right now. And the other one I noted was 2 tight end sets. For me, 2 tight ends was always a tool against the odd fronts, especially if they like to, in the old days, we called it the double eagle, but getting the tight front. Yep. And now we can spread out those gaps and create bubbles, right? We're just looking for a place to run the ball. And so 2 tight ends has that effect. Now, obviously, you can use them in multiple ways. Unbalanced, another one. I mean, defensive linemen lose their minds over it. And go back to the misses, right? They're going to give you a gap sometimes because they're not ready. And you go and mix it with tempo, it's even more. We would do some super unbalanced, and we found like we had to make a rule, and we were coming out of a sugar huddle for that, just so our guys could see where the alignment was, because they had people going all over. As center, don't snap, because we put the center on the snap. He would have control over that. Don't snap the ball till their last finger touches the dirt, just so we see where they are and we could go. But we were still moving really fast. Right.
All those are awesome ideas. And like you said, everybody, these 8 things, everybody does them, but I don't know if everybody kind of mixes and matches them together. And I think where you can become really explosive if you can mix and match some of these things together.
Definitely. The other one I love, your last one, the shifts and motions. And I see guys coming up with all these different names for all the different ways that they're going to shift and motion. And I tried all those things, and what really worked for me, going back to that idea of simplicity, is what you just said, is that if we basically would turn it on or off, and it was kind of built into some of the tempos we had, we actually called it our bounce tempo. Our bounce tempo let any of the eligibles move. We could do some things with just the Y or the running back or whatever. So you could limit those down to just a couple of words, because I don't think it matters always. And you could prescribe some, like, hey, this week when you shift, I want you to start here.
Right.
But it takes it out of having, for me, to think about what's that word again, and having all these different things. Because you think about breakdowns, they're going to chart it where, wherever you started there, and try to, what are they doing? Right. And you get those guys who are creative in doing it. We just made a simple set of rules. on how we wanted it done. And it was kind of talking with our defensive guys too. What's stressing you most here? And like, well, if you go from a 2x2 to a 2x2, it's not stressing us as much as when you go from a 3x1 to a 3x1, or you trade the tight end fullback when you have those guys in that. When you trade that strength, those things will affect us. So we made that simple rule. Just don't go from a 2x2 to a 2x2.
Right.
And make sure that if you're a guy who's on the ball, that you're on the ball. If you're off the ball, so we don't have an illegal formation. And literally all I needed to do was just call bounce and then the play call. And I let those guys take care of it. And they were probably more creative with it than me.
No doubt. They would get really creative. And I would say don't line up in the same place every time.
Right.
Mix it up. Because you're right. Defensive coordinators they're staying up there late at night because, hey, this tight end lined up 2 yards outside the hash on this, and this play he lined up 3 yards inside that. And to me, I don't know where he's going to line up. I'm giving him that freedom of being able to do it and mix it up. And it just gives those guys all kind of nightmares and headaches.
Yeah, the other thing it did for me is like those double movements. So the initial shift and then a motion.
Yeah.
Right. And again, if I'm doing it and trying to come up with all these names, I'm adding more to my player's plate. I'm actually adding more to my thought process as the play caller. So for me, I used, again, that bounce word. So I'd call the bounce word. And so it was bounce. They would know they move when the quarterback gave them that cadence to do it. And then I would just tag in the motion. So for us, it was their letter and where they were going to indicated by a number. So might be like, bounce, rip 6 is where they want to line up our formation, J7, right? And we get the guy across to the other side of the formation after the shift. So there's a lot going on there for the defense.
That's right. All that stuff's great.
Well, Coach, again, a lot of things here, some great tools. As you said, mix, match, add these things in. I think about all these things they're wrinkles you can add here as you go through the season. If you haven't done it yet, if you haven't put these in, even start to plan out, look at the rest of the way. What are the elements you want to add? And I think there's a lot you could do here that, again, goes back to that idea. Run your simple plays and now really present something tough for the defense. So, Coach, I really appreciate you sharing all these ideas with us here today. And certainly best of luck to you and the Bearcats here the rest of the season.
All right, Keith. Appreciate you guys. Thanks.
Here are winning edge takeaways and ideas for implementation. 1, be simple and efficient. One of the most significant takeaways from Coach Glenn's discussion is the emphasis on keeping the offense simple yet efficient. Coach Glenn advises you to use fast-paced play calls like one-word plays to streamline communication and execution. This allows your offense to quickly line up and run plays before the defense has a chance to adjust, maximizing efficiency and maintaining pressure on the defense. 2, use a strategic combination of these stressors. Coach Glenn highlights the importance of combining multiple stressors to create a multifaceted offensive attack. By layering elements such as tempo, unbalanced sets, and shifts in motions, your offense can significantly challenge defenses and create opportunities for big plays. This strategic combination forces the defense to adapt on the fly and can lead to miscommunications and breakdowns in their alignment and assignment. And 3, have a plan. You don't need to add all of these wrinkles or stressors at once. You can strategically build these in over the course of the season and implement against certain opponents. Doing it in a methodical way will make you tougher to plan for and defend because every week it'll seem like there's something new or something else the opponent needs to account for. But for you, the key is keeping it within those base plays or concepts you installed in camp. Be sure to check out our partners Vertical Raise for your fundraising needs, modern football technology for analytics and in-game decision-making, and signature championship rings when you win the championship this year. Links and information to all of our partners can be found in the description and on coachingcoordinator.com in our 10% toolkit. Follow us on X at Coach K. Grabowski.